Oh, we're live.
We're live.
Thanks for the countdown. We appreciate it. Here, hold on. We're live. Oh man.
We're live.
Oh, hold. Let me mute that. Here, hold on. All right, I've got that muted off. All right. So, are you waiting for me?
It's your show, man.
Oh, jeez. All right. Good morning. Where are we? Messianic Lamb Radio or You Radio? No, YouTube. It's YouTube. Has Mark ever gotten back with us on that?
It's the Lamb Network.
Oh, is that the official? I'm sorry. Welcome to Lamb Network.
Mm-hmm.
It's December 11th, Tuesday, December 11th. And welcome, everybody. I hope everybody had a good Hanukkah. Everybody have a good end to their Hanukkah festivities. I'm going to trust everyone did. We're trying to find Tom. Oh, excuse me. Trying to find Tom. Tom's out there lost in cyberspace. So Jamie's doing YouTube tech support. So it's Darryl and I right now. And I have to leave early because I have to drive down the mountain to pick up my lovely wife from the airport. She's coming home today. And we had our granddaughter Wednesday evening. My daughter had her daughter, Eliora, which means light of God, born during Hanukkah. Isn't that a nice coinkydink? So little Eliora Grace was born Wednesday evening or Wednesday late afternoon. And my wife's having to tear herself away from all that and come back here today, and that's why I'll be leaving a little early. I got to go down the mountain to pick her up at the airport. But we have a new granddaughter, and this is where we should be having like a little button that we push, and we hear this like applause or ooh or yeah, clap, like a real radio show. But it's not radio anymore. It's YouTube. It's too early. So, Darryl, how the heck are you?
I'm doing all right. We had a combined Hanukkah service with a Baptist church on Saturday evening, and discussed some of the things that we had talked about last week with, the origins of Hanukkah. And a lot of these people, it was the first time. There is one lady who comes every once in a while to this church. She's not a regular attendee. She's Dutch, but she was married to a Jewish man and raised her family as Jewish. And so she really likes what we're doing. So it was kind of neat. We had some really good discussions, as we always do, but there's just this apathy within the body in general about doing these things. And yet my son, who's going to a Christian school, and the origins of the school was Christian Reform, a lot of Dutch people up here in Peterborough. And so we just got the newsletter for what was going on next week. And every single day there's something different about Christmas spirit and stuff like that. And so last night, my wife had to send a letter to his teacher saying, well, Yossi's not going to be participating in all these different things. And, please don't have him make Christmas tree decorations as part of art, because Jeremiah 10 says that we really ought not to be doing stuff like that. And so there's this constant battle that we go through within culture.
Yeah. Are they doing like the Advent thing?
Kind of. It's not really so much that. It's just that next week being the last week of school, of course, is like, well, we're really getting into the Christmas spirit. And so on one day you got to wear a sparkly outfit, and on the next day you got to wear green and red and all that kind of stuff. And even on Saturday or Sunday night, we were in Toronto for the the Baptist convention Christmas party. So we went bowling, laser tag, and so it was fun for my son and me. I got to shoot a bunch of things, which I was really grateful for. I don't do that nearly often enough. But I mean, one of the contests, they had a contest and these are all for the pastors and church planters. They had a contest for an ugly Christmas sweater. And I'm thinking, if we're truly celebrating the birth of Messiah, why is it all this irreverence and this, it's almost mockery, the stuff that they do. And they don't be able to make a distinction about it. And, when you come to the Moedim, and, listen, Hanukkah is a fun time. It's not a biblically mandated feast, although we do see Yeshua celebrating it. But when you come to Pesach or you come to Shavuot or Sukkot or something like that, there's this reverence that we're supposed to have as we come into God's presence. And I don't find that anywhere in anything that they're doing in Christmas. What I see in Christmas, to be honest with you, is this frenetic thing that we got to do stuff. We got to do stuff, and we're doing all these different programs and events and things like that. Eventually, we'll get around to singing "Hark the Herald Angels Sing" and stuff like that, and commemorating the birth of Messiah. But the reality is that this whole season really has nothing to do with godly things.
Yeah, I would enjoy Christmas a lot more if they would just take the whole Jesus thing out of it. Because I love Christmas, but just take the Jesus thing out of it. And I wrote a blog about it years ago. The reason why I do is because it was the happiest time of the year around my house. The other 50 weeks of the year, my dad wasn't talking to us, and he was quite the I don't know. It was just not good. And around this time of year, he would actually lighten up and interact with us, and we got lots of gifts, and we got to spend time with him. And he's my stepfather, but still he raised me. But I loved Christmas because it was the best time of year in our household, growing up as a kid. Yeah, they should, of course. Since then, it's been our relationship has absolutely changed. It's changed a lot in the last 20 plus years. And they're actually, and I found this out accidentally, but they've actually have been looking at Torah and keeping the diet and doing their, and I was like, well, how the heck did that happen? Who told you about this? It was like, it's really bizarre. So I gave him one of my books. He's been my biggest critic, not necessarily in a good way or whatever. He's always opposed me and my thing. But anyway, he said I'm very surprised at how well written it is. That's what he said. Gee, thanks, Dad.
Compliment.
Appreciate it, Pops. Yeah, it's been like that for my whole life. But yeah, so but we have a relationship, whereas we didn't. But that's why Christmas, I really enjoy it, because it was a really positive thing in our life, and there was a semblance of peace in our family, in our home. Yeah, if they would just take the Christmas the Jesus thing out of there, I could enjoy it. But
yeah, but you can't mix the holy and profane, and
right.
This is what.
Anyway, and we lost Darryl. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Haggai 2:11 is very clear. It says, that which is profane you cannot make holy. We don't have that authority. God won't do that.
That's like part of their huge narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I've talked to these people about it, they're like, we're taking Christmas back for Jesus. Like, it was never Jesus's. It's like, it's bizarre.
Well, and
we lost you on that one.
There's only one winter festival mentioned in the New Covenant, and it's not Christmas.
Right. So I asked if it was Advent. I knew Advent was like I thought Advent was like a Catholic thing, and a few years ago on Facebook, all these evangelical friends of mine were doing all this Advent stuff and wishing people or whatever you do on Advent. I'm like, what the heck? Why are you guys doing this? And I didn't know that there was an actual that there were strains of evangelicalism that were that did Advent. I didn't know that. See, I wasn't. I've been saved 39 years in January. Not a single one of those years has it been in a denomination. It's always been I've always been in a non-denominational, spirit-filled, situation.
This is a news alert. This is a news alert. A news alert. A news alert.
Okay.
Hey, Darryl. Darryl.
Yes.
Can he call in?
Can he call in?
Can he call in?
Perhaps. I have no idea how to do that.
Okay, well, I don't either. So I've got him on the other line. I'll just tell him, keep trying. All right. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. That was a Fox News.
We're just talking about Christmas.
Hang on. There you
go. The reason for the season.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I was very surprised how many of my evangelical friends did Advent, and I'm like, why would you do that? Why are you doing that? And it's a big thing apparently, but I've never been involved with denominations. The closest I was to a denomination was Vineyard, which isn't even a denomination, but it's just, I don't know. I don't get it. I got involved when I got saved. I got saved, and I got involved with Jesus, and that was what I was involved with. And I don't know. It's weird, man. Denominations freak me out.
well, I think you would freak them out.
Politics.
Well, so would Jesus.
Amen. Both of you. You two guys are a team.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it's just so unnecessary, I mean, the reason why denominations occur is the reason why they exist is because of the differences of theology and doctrine that they have. That's the only reason. Well, God isn't multiple denominations. It's not multiple gospels or multiple spirits. It's one message, it's one spirit, it's one gospel. And we can't seem to figure that out because we don't like what it says. Yeah. What's really disturbing is all the wackiness in the Torah community. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Like psycho. Like, wow. It's like conspiracy theories are now the norm in that whole deal. And it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, it's so weird. It's weird. And man, don't try to correct them. Don't try and correct one of those types.
It goes back to what Yeshua was saying, is that narrow is the road.
Yeah.
Wide is the path to perdition, and it's easy to get off the track. When I read Romans chapter 7, I'm looking at Paul walking this tightrope between law and grace, and it's precarious because on either side, you either fall into legalism or you fall into licentiousness, and it's a hard road. And the closer we get to God, the smaller that road gets, and the tighter that tightrope gets.
Yeah,
and that's why although there are well over 1 billion professing Christians in the world today, how many are really going to make it?
Yeah, I mean, they actually say it's like 80% of the United States of America is considered Christian. And I'm like, oh, man, we are in trouble. Hey, can you pour me some of that Joe? I'm out of Joe. I woke up to no Joe.
This is my volcano coffee.
Volcano coffee.
That's right. With my lizard mug. See that?
Oh, yeah, look at that.
There you go.
You're part of that Illuminati stuff too, huh? Oh, people.
All right, Jamie, you gonna jump in here at any time, or are you just here to show your pretty face? What's happening, man?
No, I'm back. I just talked to Mark. He said, if we're all gone and you have nothing to say, just close the show out.
Just pull the frickin' plug.
Well, listen, man. There's always something to say. Don't ever open that door for me, because we might be here a while.
Well, that's okay. It's okay with us. We're going to be gone.
Yeah.
I do not endorse anything Darryl will be saying after I leave. It does not reflect the. Oh my God!
It doesn't reflect this Chameleon church, right?
There you go. Speaking of, my part one, well, episode one of my 4-episode thingamajigger over at A Rude Awakening will air December 21st.
Where's it airing?
Well, it's A Rude Awakening TV. Here, I'll show you. I posted something about it on the Facebook yesterday. Let me see if I can find it. All right. So you can catch me on A Rude Awakening Shabbat Night Live on the following television networks: Sky Angel, Hope TV, Uplift, GEB America, Omega TV, and the Gospel Channel.
All the big ones.
I guess so. I don't know. And you can also catch it on Facebook or YouTube at A Rude Awakening. Episode 1 will air December 21st. Episode 2, December 28th. Episode 3, January 4th. And episode 4, January 11th. So for 4 Fridays in a row, people, you could be hanging out with moi.
That would be a rude awakening.
Well, there you go. And I'm looking forward to it. We're anticipating and hoping for a nice spike in book activity. And yeah, we're expanding our territory. We're expanding our thingamajig.
Tent peg. Yeah, that's great.
Message is getting out.
Yeah, it is. Message is getting out. So I'm excited. I'm excited about it because I'd like to know who's going to call me now because of that. Sid Roth. Come on, Sid. Sid Roth. Baby needs diapers.
Well, what you've got to have is a supernatural experience.
I have tons of them.
Then
Watch this.
He's ready for you then. He is ready for you.
I actually had somebody, I'm sure I mentioned this before. Why would you go on that show? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't I? If Sid Roth called, I'd go. If TBN called, I'd go. If Baker, what's his name? Jim Baker called, I'd go.
Jim Baker, I've been on his show. Jim and Sid Roth over the years.
Oh, well,
I think the Rude Awakening is a good show for you. It'll get you out there. It'll get you out there a little bit.
Whatever way the message gets out, I remember I was listening to John MacArthur. He was doing an interview one time, and he was saying that, he's emphatic about the fact that the NIV is not a good translation of the Bible. I think we're all in agreement with that. And he said that the NIV organization approached him about doing the MacArthur Study Bible, which is printed all over the world. I mean, I even have a copy of one, although I scrapped out a lot of his comments. And he said that, they had a choice. So are they going to do this or not? And he said they agreed to allow him notes in that Bible. That sometimes there's more commentary than there is actually scripture on the pages. But he was saying that, well, if they're going to allow me to give what we believe is the proper interpretation of the verse, regardless of what they put in the translation, then why wouldn't we do something like that? why are we going to die on this hill when the reality is that there's an opportunity to get the message out? And, we're not going to agree with everything everybody says. There are times where we don't even agree with each other on certain things.
Well, wait, you guys don't agree with me all the time?
Oh. Barely, actually.
I've been lured into this false sense of security.
Yeah. So, whatever way we can get the message out, we give God thanks.
I'm thinking of Chick Tracks next. I want to be an episode in Chick Tracks.
Well, I tell you what, that gets a lot of people watch that. Look at that.
Punk rock streets of LA to YouTube.
But what is the essence of Chick Tracks? Kill them all like God sort them out or something like that?
I don't know.
It's like a comic book.
You know what a Chick Track is?
I know. Yeah, no, I know what they are. I'm giving a commentary on it.
Oh, a commentary. I don't have any.
Are we going to get into scripture? Like we just, know.
Oh. Well, gosh, look at you, just taskmastering it over there. You're so legalistic, right?
I've got the controls today.
Why do you have to be so legalistic?
He's a denomination in and of himself.
Yeah. Derelicts. Very close to derelicts, but derelicts.
Yes. Come drink the Kool-Aid.
That's right. Well, boys, this Joseph thing, you get the whole Lance Wildnow-isms here. He talks about when he talks about Joseph, when I first heard him talk about it was probably around 2007. Now, transition. We have to go through the desert. We have to go through like what Joseph did. Transition is going through hell, but I think God's in it. And then he mentions about how many times did Joseph have the opportunity to opt out of the situation. Apparently there's like 6 or 7 times he could have opted out, but he chose not to. And if that little Pharisee book thing that I brought up a couple of weeks ago, if that's true about how they knew he was a Hebrew prince, and they asked him about it, if he had been the one that had been sold out, and so as not to shame his brothers, he said no. And even if that's the only thing, man, that's enough for me, man. After being thrown into a pit and then sold off to slavery by my brothers, if so as not to shame them, I wasn't going to say anything about it. That lesson alone is enough for this whole story, besides the fact that, he ends up, just discipling the nations. There's the concept of he had a good attitude while he was in prison because he started climbing the ranks of the prison and eventually took it over. If you have a bad attitude, oh, woe is me, oh, my life circumstances and this and that, when that kind of stuff happens, you're probably not going to be promoted, because God doesn't want to promote that. He wants to promote
whining crybabies. He doesn't like.
Right. He just doesn't. I mean, try explaining that to people. They'll turn on you and trample what you're saying and turn on you and attack you. You can't tell these people that being that guy, crybabies or snowflakes or just, constantly everything wounds me. Your approach or your tone or what you're trying, oh, I'm wounded, poor me, and now you're the bad guy because I'm wounded. God doesn't like those people. He doesn't work with those people. He doesn't promote those people. He doesn't elevate those people. Those people have a constant history of woe is me and bridge burning, and they never grow. They never learn. They're just stuck in this. What about my heroes? You didn't validate me. You didn't. What's the other word for validate? Affirm. You didn't affirm me. It's like, wow. if you actually needed it to the point where you're asking for it. Hello. I should have knocked on the desk. It's just, it's bizarre. It's bizarre to me. I don't understand that. And I have no tolerance for it, no patience for it. Oh, can you hear all those dogs now? So we've got like 15 dogs. No, I'm just kidding. Joseph wasn't, let me close the door real quick.
That's truly a rat dog, isn't it? Oh my God. We are seeing the moves of Allan. Mm-hmm. There's over 60 things that Joseph and Yeshua are like. I was reading up on those. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I mean, Joseph didn't do that. He didn't trip out. He didn't allow that to become his identity. Think about it. Think about what we're dealing with people nowadays. Here's Joseph's story. My brothers, I shared with them my prophetic dreams, and they decided they tried to kill me, and they decided not to kill me, and then they sold me to slave traders.
Well, part of that is, of course, because he was spoiled, and that was Jacob's fault.
Sure.
And he coddled them, and if I'm going to go tell my older brothers that you're all going to bow down to me, I might be tempted to, sell them off into slavery too, or give them away or something like that. So
sure,
you can kind of understand the animosity, and it was totally, it was Jacob's fault because he played favorites. Now, that's not to say that the other brothers, the patriarchs, were shining examples of godliness. I don't think we see anything of that until Judah later on. He goes to Jacob and he says, your son lives. And that's kind of Judah's redemption. And he offers himself to be the propitiation in case Benjamin is taken into slavery, because that's what Jacob was worried about. Whereas you remember Reuben's response, well, if we don't bring Benjamin back, you can kill my kids. Father makes that kind of a deal. So, yeah. These guys there was a lot of issues in this family.
Yeah.
And, if you look at the character of most of the brothers, they all would have been in juvenile hall today or something.
Yeah. No doubt Joseph's spoiled, but he gets to a point where he changes. I'm just thinking, relating his story, I was sold into slavery by my brothers, compared to the other stories that we hear from people today who whine and complain, and all they do is they stay in this woe is me place, and they never grow, they never learn, and all they do is they just cause and wreak havoc all around them. What's that? Yeah. Whereas, and they always have, well, you don't know what I've been through. You don't know what's been said to me or what I've been through. Hey, I understand.
40 years ago, and they still haven't gotten over it yet.
Right. And whereas Joseph's his story kind of trumps a lot of ours. I was never sold into slavery by my brothers. I was sent to Guatemala on false pretenses with a one-way ticket. That's really freaking close. So I win in that regard regarding that story. Yeah. Hey, great grandma. Hey, mom, and they're all kicking your ass. They're all kicking you out of the country with a one-way. Yeah. So I can identify a little bit. But my point is, a lot of us don't have stories like that yet. Like you said, we haven't gotten over it, and it's been how long? And they're constant. So everything's a trigger. Everything's a trigger. And as you can tell, I'm probably talking about something I went through over the weekend with somebody, because I am. And it's a constant trigger. It's there's no reasoning in you. Joseph didn't do that. Joseph could have said, I'm in slavery. I'm in Egypt. And this is no bueno. You're not affirming me. I'm in jail. You're not doing this or that. I'm in jail. He didn't do that. He dealt with it. And because he dealt with it, he was elevated, he was promoted, he was into the positions that he needed to be in order to do God's will, not only for his own life, but for the world.
Well, he had enough of a fear of God to begin with.
Right.
He recognized God's hand in all of it. But because of that, God affirmed him. And it's God who needs to do the affirming. We don't need affirmation from all these other people around us.
Apparently some people do.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people I don't want their affirmation because that means that I'm like the world then.
Right.
It's the world that
those people don't have that understanding though, Darryl. Well, you just said.
Yeah, but it's scriptural. I mean, doesn't Paul say that friendship with God is enmity against the world and vice versa?
I get it.
So there's no excuse because it's right in our Bible. If you're friends with the world, you're in opposition to God. But see, what Joseph did is that because he had the fear of God, because the Spirit of God was upon him, because he, submitted himself to the process and trusted God through all of this, that doesn't mean to say that he didn't probably have a couple of freak out moments and maybe hit the wall or something like that, because he does even petition the baker and the wine tester and say, hey, you might make a petition on my behalf.
Don't forget me.
Yeah, because I am here unjustly.
Right.
So it's not as if he had the silly smile on his face the whole time and just crystals, naum. But because he submitted to God, because he trusted God enough, God affirmed him through this whole process by elevating him, by being with him. So it's there's a combination there that it God will demonstrate his faithfulness.
Right. Well, yes, he's human and he had some bad days, but he wasn't defined by the whiny, woe is me stuff. Does that make sense?
And too much of Christianity, especially in North America today, is about that because we have been so comfortable. And you get a hangnail, and all of a sudden people are losing their stuff.
Yeah.
So do you think that Joseph, why was he so different from his brothers? He was the spoiled one. He was the one that got all the favor of the father, but he also was the one that kept the best attitude. I mean, what made him stand out? Was it his attitude that made him who he was? Or was it because his father favored him?
Well, I think he was the favorite from the get-go because he was the first child of the wife he had loved instead of the one.
Well,
I agree he was favored by his father, but he also kept, he was unbelievable. He kept that attitude. He saw the bear, he had positive attitude. He'd take him out, the lion. He always had the positive look at things. He was always looking at his glass half full instead of half empty. His brothers seemed to always be whining and crying, just like most people today. They'd rather be negative than look at the other side of it. Everything has two sides to everything. And
he was also obedient. He was obedient too.
He was.
He did what his father wanted, whereas the other guys, they were always like, let's ditch the old man, let's do our thing.
Right.
Well, so that tells him what kind of insides he had. If he's going to be obedient to his dad, it'll be easier for him to actually hear and be obedient to the Father in heaven.
We have to submit to our governing authorities.
Oh, there you go. Submission. Now, that's the key element to the majority of these people that are running around going, woe is me. They don't submit to authority. And they, for some reason, are smarter than any authority that comes their way. And that's why they're burning bridges. He didn't do that. He submitted to Potiphar, and he did the Potiphar thing. He submitted to his jailers and did the jailer thing. And then when he got the call, he was prepared.
It was 13 years.
Yeah.
But he didn't submit to all authority like the wife of Potiphar. He turned that down and shooed it off because it was against.
Right, because that wasn't the right authority. that wasn't the right authority. Potiphar was the right authority. This girl, and you know she was hot. Come on, this girl.
Well, I saw the movie. I know.
This girl is trying to derail him, and that's probably one of my favorite parts. He's asking the Lord to deliver him from Potiphar's wife, so he's sent to jail, and he's like, "Yes." Oh man, it's good stuff. So now where do we go? I mean, I've got a few minutes left here.
Well, I do too. I got to go right now. I got to be there in 3 minutes.
It's going to be the Darryl show.
It's going to be the Darryl show. Hallelujah. Howdy doody time.
I've been waiting all this time to take over, and now here's my opportunity.
You got your opportunity, your day to be a star. Wow. Okay, I'm going to see you, gentlemen, and may the Lord bless and keep you, okay?
Thanks. We'll be careful. Get a good report.
Okay, it will be. All right, bye now.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
So what are you going to do by yourself, Darryl?
I'll talk about a couple of things. We'll extend this on for a little bit longer, and then we'll shut it down. People a break.
Pull that plug, dude.
Oh, I'll tell you. There's a good flatline before that, huh?
Well, I mean, okay, so have you noticed that the numbers on YouTube aren't apparently as much as they were when we were doing the other thing? Or did they not have the other numbers right? And these are the real numbers. We're in trouble. Father Time has shown up. What's that? What's the guy? What's the wizard from Lord of the Rings? Gandalf. It's Brother Gandalf. And he doesn't. Anyway, have you noticed the numbers, the differences in numbers between what they said we had back then and what we actually really have now? Looks like we're gonna get called to the principal's office.
Good morning, Mark.
What is it that you need? Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
We can.
What's up?
What's up, Brother Gandalf?
You're what's up?
You do mean YouTube. You. Did you ever see that little lamb, right? That's a U, right? So it's YouTube. Did you do that on purpose,
wonderful.
Or did you not do that accidentally?
We're trying to get away from that, if you don't mind.
But you see the play on words there. Did you?
It is. I get it. It's good. It's good.
But was that deliberate?
What you have to realize is that when we went over to YouTube, what's the deal? You're shaking your head.
No. What I'm saying is you didn't do that on purpose.
Didn't do what on purpose?
Okay, yeah. So you don't know what I'm talking about.
I really don't.
Okay, so you have your logo is a sheep, sheep, and then tube.
Right.
If that's a female sheep, then it's a U.
We get it. We get it.
Did you do that on purpose?
I did, but it had nothing to do with EWE.
See, then you didn't do it on purpose. So you weren't thinking female sheep tube.
No, I was not.
Well, it works. I was gonna give you 2 high fives if you had done that, because that's very witty wordplay. Thank you for being a man of integrity and not admitting to the truth that you were not that witty.
No, I'm not going to go there. No, man, it was a deal that when we went over here, we were trying to get things together. And there's a reason why I said we weren't going to go launch major public until January 1st, because we have no idea in the world what we're doing.
Gotcha.
2 months ago, we had no idea in the world what we were doing. So I didn't want to call the Messianic world out there and say, hey, come on over to us, until we kind of figure this whole thing out and get going. Within the first couple of broadcasts, somebody said, hey, lamb tube. And I'm going, oh, well, that sounds kind of cool. So we went with it. and then, I mean, I went way too much with it, changed the names of crap and all kinds of stuff. And then started realizing that people were actually searching for us, typing in lamb space tube instead of all one word. And when you do that, you get a coat.
Pictures of lambs with little things on.
You get a coat for a lamb, a sheep.
Oh, gee. Hey,
And
Darryl,
it's a wrapping for a sheep, and there's an actual thing. And then I'm watching your show, and you're going, lamb tube.
That's the face I made.
And it's kind of like, along with a couple other people. And I mean, I'm trying to get some other people on the network that I really want. And they went looking it up and they said, what the heck is this coat for a lamb? What is all this? So I'm going, back off. And so, I mean, with YouTube, you can't change your title, but every 6 months. So I screwed up by putting lamb radio, lamb tube. I actually screwed up. So we're really trying to push real heavy to just say Lamb Network or Lamb Video Network or something, and not even go there at all. That way we don't have people trying to look that crap up. And
what about the word Messianic in there?
Yeah, it's fine. You can use anything you want, just don't use lamb tube.
Okay. Oh, I never use lamb tube. Hey, Darryl.
I know. Some people go ahead.
Yeah.
This is what it's like when you get taken over.
Yeah.
Are we live?
Yeah, we're live.
I thought we were. I talked to Jamie. I thought you guys were going to shut it down.
No. We're giving people the skinny on what's really good.
This is skinny.
This is like the real skinny. I'm leaving in 35 seconds. No, whoa.
There's your skinny.
Band.
There's your skinny, dude. Hey, you invited me in, man. You don't know me or what?
I didn't invite you in.
Oh, somebody did.
I did.
Okay, there you go.
Now let's recap. I did not invite him in. I did not invite him in. Darryl did, and I don't approve any of that stuff. And also, right? My eyes. I know. That's why I'm doing this. Oh man! So remember what we were talking about 5 minutes ago before we were taking over, Darryl, about ratings and numbers?
Yeah,
they just plummeted.
Oh no, they actually just went up.
They just went down, man. We got negative people watching now.
Well, be careful next time you call me in.
We just went Jerry Springered on everybody,
dude. That's a dumbo moment right there.
Okay, what exactly do you need from me?
I didn't call you in here. I'm leaving. I'm driving down the mountain to go pick up my wife. You know what? I do not endorse whatever they're about to do for the next 30 minutes without me.
I'm actually very busy, so I just I only came in because you men invited me in. I wouldn't come in for everybody. Well, actually, that's a lie. I'm just trying to inflate your ego. What?
You twisted that?
I'm just inflating your ego. I know you guys are so down. You guys look like you're down in the basement digging holes. So I thought, I'd lift you guys up. So.
This is a pretty swanky looking basement. Anyway, I gotta go. Love you guys. We'll see you next week. Mark, thanks for the I don't know what I'm thanking you for. You just
what was it that you
Oh, I'm out of here.
Oh, hey, look, he shut me off. All right. Bye.
See you, Mark.
All right. We'll see y'all later. Have a great day.
All right.
Talk to you soon. How do I get out of here?
Right. Okay. Mark's gone. Okay. And it looks like Allan has left us too. So for the remaining couple of minutes, there was actually something that I do want to talk about. And there's a passage from last week's Parsha in Genesis 41. And it has to do when Joseph is revealed and finally given his promotion. And actually what Allan and I were talking about with Jamie there was a really good lead up to this, that Joseph submitted himself to the process. And that's something that we tend to forget about. We understand that we need to submit ourselves to God, but what we're not always willing to do, and even as sometimes more mature believers, is we're not always willing to submit ourselves to the process and understanding that God is the God of the process. So Joseph is, after finally 13 years, called, and he makes an appearance before Pharaoh. And in Genesis 41, chapter 14, and this is going to tie in with what we were discussing earlier with the Christmas season too. It says in 14 of Genesis 41, then Pharaoh sent and called for Joseph, and they hurriedly brought him out of the dungeon when he had shaved himself and changed his clothes and came to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have had a dream, but no one can interpret it. And I have heard it said about you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph then answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. And there's that little thing there where it says that he shaved himself and changed his clothes. And so what Joseph actually did is he became like an Egyptian in this. And this is all very key, because when Joseph's brothers come down to Egypt a few years later, they don't recognize him. And the reason is because Joseph now looks like an Egyptian. Now we got to remember that Joseph is a type and a shadow of Yeshua. And so when he shaved himself and he changed his clothes to appear before Pharaoh, he was not recognized, because remember in Torah, which was going to be, of course, written later, but they already understood this, that the Hebrews did not shave. They kept their beards. It says in Leviticus 19, you shall not harm the corners of your beards. And if you look at the Hebrew word, it actually means to actually shave. It's not that we don't cut, we don't trim, but we don't shave it off. We don't make the skin bald. And so Joseph is now looking like an Egyptian. And when he goes before Pharaoh, he shaves. He's no longer looking like a Hebrew. And so his brothers, who are the other patriarchs, they don't recognize him. What we have going on with Christmas season especially, but really a lot of contemporary Christian culture, is that for Jewish people, Yeshua is not recognized to be one of their brothers. The Jewish people today do not recognize Yeshua as being their brother and therefore their Messiah. He looks like an Egyptian. He looks like a Gentile. And so when we have Sunday church worship and we have Christmas and Easter and all these holidays that were brought in well after, the new covenant was established, when we have ugly Christmas sweaters and things like that, when we have Christmas dinner to celebrate the birth of the Jewish Messiah, and we have Christmas ham, or we celebrate the resurrection of Yeshua, and we have Easter ham, which is really tied into the birth of Tammuz, who was supposedly killed by a wild boar, we do not recognize Yeshua as being the Messiah of Israel, and therefore he is now cut off from the Jewish people. And what we are trying to do here with the Lamb Network and with the Chameleon Church Show and all these other things that we're doing is we're trying to help Joseph, who is a type and a shadow of Yeshua. We're trying to help him be recognized by the Jewish people by bringing back him into a Hebrew context. Because in order for Romans 11:11 to be fulfilled, which is that the Gentiles achieve salvation in order to provoke the Jews to jealousy, not wrath, not being upset, but jealousy, which is meaning desiring what belongs to yourself. Because remember, God's a jealous God. So jealousy is not a sin. Jealousy is desiring that which belongs to you. the 10th commandment is that we shall not covet, which is desiring something that doesn't belong to us. And so in order to provoke a Jew to jealousy, the key is by having, for Gentiles to have a better relationship with the God of Israel than the Jewish people do. And the only way they're going to do that is by celebrating him and worshiping him in a context that the Jewish people keep the Shabbat. The things that are maybe abiblical, it's neither for nor against. Just make sure you're doing the things that God commanded us to do. But certainly don't bring things into our worship of the Jewish Messiah that are going to confuse the Jewish person. In fact, most Jewish people, were they to walk into a Christian church today, would not recognize that the whole service is modeled after the first century synagogue. And so in order for us to be obedient to reveal our brother Yeshua and present him in such a way that Jewish people are going to say, that's my brother. And so since we've been abandoned by all of our brethren today, and I've been left here holding the fort, I do want to be sensitive to the time. And that's really the point that I wanted to make. I think it's so important for us that as people are getting caught up in Christmas, and, you know, on Friday, I'm going down to Niagara Falls to be part of kind of a Christmas party, where it's a combination of Hanukkah, Christmas. They've got trees, they got lights, they're doing gift exchange. But they've asked me to come down because we, as we've mentioned in the past, want to start a Hebrew Roots Bible study down there. And there's a number of people who are desiring this. And one of the comments that came to me is they say, we don't know what this really looks like. And so, you know, we're hoping we're not going to offend you with this festival. And I assured them that it wasn't. Listen, you know, everybody's at where they're at. And the point is that we want to help people get to that next level. We want to help them be conformed to the image of God. And so when one of the ladies who is coordinating a lot of this, when she saw my message on alttnmessianic.com or ruachatmet.com, I did a message last year, which was entitled, Should Christians Celebrate Christmas? And I go through all of the history and the pagan origins and a lot of the things that we do and where they actually came from. The answer is quite obviously no. We should not be celebrating Christmas. You want to recognize the birth of the Messiah? Go ahead. I give God thanks every day for Messiah being born. But that doesn't mean that I should be doing it in the context of a pagan holiday, which was the birth of, the feast of Saturnalia and the birth of Mithras, which was on December 25th, which before the Gregorian calendar came in, the Julian calendar, which is what the Gentile world used. It was supposed to be the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. And so it's the birth of the sun god, the sun, and you can get into all that. Go to our website. You can do tons of research. The point is that we're not supposed to be celebrating God and worshiping God in the context of pagan holidays. And I think most of us are in agreement on that. But the point is that it's not to have an attitude of condemnation, but an attitude of, well, we're here to learn and we're here to help encourage you. But in order for Jewish people to really understand that Messiah belongs to them, we've got to get rid of the stuff that was brought in that's taken him away because they don't recognize him. They're like the patriarchs. They're like, he had to say, come on over here, come look at your Bible. When in the feast of Hanukkah, the Feast of Dedication in John chapter 10, the Pharisees go to Yeshua and they say, well, if you're the Messiah, tell us plainly. And he says, I have told you, but you do not listen to me. And the reason is because their idea of what the Messiah was going to be was entirely different. What were they asking? This is something that's not really well understood because you have to actually go to the book of Maccabees. And in First Maccabees, it says that after they kicked the Assyrians out of of Israel. They took back control of the temple. They kicked Antiochus out. He eventually dies a horrible death on the way to battle from the sickness that God gave him. And so for the first time in hundreds of years since the Babylonian invasion, Judah is now free. Israel's now free. They are a sovereign nation once again, and they rededicate the temple. And what they do is it says that they take the stones. Here, if you actually go to First Maccabees, I'll pull it up for you here, because it's a very instructive verse. All right, let me pull it up here. If you go to First Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 44. Then Judas, starting in verse 41, then Judas detailed men to fight against those in the citadel until he had cleansed the sanctuary. He chose blameless priests and devoted to the law, and they cleansed the sanctuary and removed the defiled stones to an unclean place. Remember, Antiochus had commanded the priests to sacrifice a pig on the altar. They defiled it. It's called the abomination of desolation, pointing toward the final abomination, desolation, which will be when the Antichrist comes into the temple and sits himself in the Holy of Holies. Or it says they deliberated what to do about the altar of burnt offering, which had been profaned. And they thought it best to tear it down so that it would not be a lasting shame to them that the Gentiles had defiled it. Get rid of it, defiled stones. So they tore down the altar. And here's what they did is they stored the stones in a convenient place on the temple hill until a prophet should come to tell them what to do with them. And so then they took unhewn stones as the law directs. They built a new altar like the former one. So what did they do? They took the old altar of defiled stones. They put it in a cave instead of just getting rid of it. They should have thrown it in a dumpster at that point. But because it once was holy, even though it's now defiled, they said, we're going to put the stones away and we're going to wait till a prophet comes and shows us what to do with it. And if you tie that back into Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15, God says to Moses that I will raise up a prophet like you and you shall do what he says or else your life will be required of you. It's a Messianic prophecy. It's pointing toward Yeshua. So what do the Maccabees do? They take the stones of the defiled altar, they move it into a cave. They said, we're going to wait till a prophet comes and tells us what to do with it. So when they confront Yeshua at the Feast of Dedication, and the Feast of Dedication is about the overthrow of a pagan king, and really a man who declared himself to be God because he named himself Antiochus Epiphanes, which means God manifest. It means that he's a divine being. And so they overthrew him, and they're waiting for the prophet to come tell them what to do with the stones. What they're asking Yeshua is, what do we do with the defiled stones? If you're the Messiah, prove it to us by telling us how we can cleanse these defiled stones. Yeshua says, I already told you I'm the Messiah. I have fulfilled all these prophecies. You go to Isaiah 35, the lame shall walk, the blind shall see, the gospel shall be preached to the poor. Same message he gave to John. Are you the one that we are expecting, or should we be expecting someone else? Tell John, the lame walk, the blind see, the deaf can hear, the lepers are cleansed, and the gospel is preached to the poor. I am fulfilling prophecy. Nowhere in the scriptures do we have anything about the Messiah giving a sign of himself as telling him what to do with defiled stones that should have been chucked out 200 years ago. Why is this important? Because it's what we do with God all the time. We create God in our own image. And what Gentiles have done to Yeshua, to the detriment of the Jewish people, is they've made him to be something that he is not. And if we're going to see Jewish people really come to faith, then what we need to do is we need to bring him back to, with the beard on, to look like a Hebrew, to dress like a Hebrew, and to be worshipped in the way that Torah commands us. I think this all ties in together so clearly for us today that we don't want to condemn our Gentile brethren who are celebrating. It's only what they know. So we don't want to come with a condemning attitude, but rather what I said to this woman in Niagara Falls and down that area, is that we're here, our ministry is here to help you to understand how to worship God in a way that is more accurate. Go back to Acts 18. Apollos, he's preaching Yeshua in the synagogue mightily, but Aquila and Priscilla, they pull him aside and they explain to him the ways of God more accurately. He's doing a good job. He's preaching salvation, but he only knows about the baptism of John. He does not know about the baptism of the Holy Spirit. Come here, brother, we want to tell you. We need to take a loving attitude. And part of what Allan was alluding to is he says that there's a lot of craziness and wackiness within the Torah movement. Those who keep Torah, they've got all kinds of crazy things. But the biggest problem we have in the Messianic movement and the Hebrew roots movement and all these other movements, blah, 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 is an attitude of condemnation. All of a sudden, we think that we're better than everybody else because we have greater revelation. And what Paul reminds the Gentiles in Romans 11, to those who are receiving salvation when Jewish people don't, is that they shouldn't be arrogant, but rather they need to take an attitude of humility, that if God did not spare the natural branches, he will certainly not spare you if you don't act with an attitude of humility. And so our message to our brethren at this time of year is that, you know what? We understand your heart and that you want to celebrate the birth of Messiah. But there's a more accurate way to do it. And we've got to get rid of pagan things, and we've got to bring holiness back. Never mind the defiled stones. And this is what a lot of our paganism is, it's defiled stones. It was never meant to belong to God. God didn't want them to do anything with the defiled stones. They should have brought the dumpster. They should have thrown it in there. They should have hauled it off to the dump. But they didn't, because the same thing with the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls were scrolls that didn't pass the muster. They had too many mistakes on them. And so instead of throwing them out, what they did is, because it had the name of God on it, and they revered the name of God that much, they put them in a graveyard. That's what the Dead Sea Scrolls are. It was a graveyard of scrolls that didn't qualify as holy. This is what the stones are. They're defiled. And we've got all these things within our faith walk that's defiled. Brethren, I encourage you, we've just come through the Feast of Dedication. We have to ask ourselves, Lord, you show me where the defiled stones are in my spirit. What is in my life? What is in my soul right now that is keeping me from dedicating myself to you? That's the real theme of Hanukkah. And that's the real theme, I think, if we want to talk about the meaning for the season. It's that Messiah has come, even though it's the wrong day and it's done in the wrong context. But fine, if we want to, break it down to its core, we can acknowledge the birth of Yeshua at any point in time. So let's join with our brethren in this time, giving thanks to God for the Messiah. Let's get rid of all the pagan trappings that surround that and worship the Lord in spirit and in truth. And so throughout the rest of this week, and really throughout the rest of this year, I think that's a message that God wants us all to hear, because boy, oh boy, there are tough times coming. And unless we're dedicated to God, unless we're submitting to not only the God of Israel, but the process of the God of Israel, God is the God of the process. And so unless we submit ourselves to the process, who God is God of, then we're never going to get that promotion that we're looking for. I believe that the Lamb Network, which Mark and Adina are so diligently trying to promote. We're trying to get this. And if you're going through tough times right now, and if you're going through that discipline process, remember Hebrews 12:11 says that discipline for the time is not joyful, but rather unpleasant. But when we are fully trained by it, took Joseph 13 years to be fully trained by it, it will then produce the peaceful fruit of righteousness. Joseph was ready to run an entire nation. That doesn't happen overnight, beloved. That doesn't happen with a message, a word, and it's a process that God has to refine us. He has to train us. He has to build up those spiritual muscles. So let's submit ourselves to the process and submit ourselves to God, who's taking us through that process. And you know what? My wife and I are going through that process right now, and it's hard. It's difficult. And I keep crying out to God. I said, God, we need relief. And he says, just hang on a little bit longer. It's coming. Deliverance is coming. The promotion's coming. Hang on, because you're not quite ready for what I've got prepared for you. Joseph would not have been ready if he had been sprung even after 11 years when he interpreted the dream to the baker and the wine taster. He wasn't ready yet. And you ask yourselves, God, I'm pretty sure I've got this message already. Can we get it? Nope, it's more. It's okay to cry out. God understands that. But don't walk away from the process. Let's get rid of the defiled stones. Let's bless God and worship him in spirit and truth. You can find us on alttnmessianic.com, Light to the Nations Messianic Ministries. You can also find us on Ruach HaMet, our Facebook page, Ruach HaMet. And we broadcast live every Saturday at 12 noon Eastern time. And the messages are then archived on our website and on Vimeo. I'm going to end with the Aaronic benediction. Thank you all for your participation here. We love you greatly. And thank you so much for praying for us and being out there. I will see you all on Friday morning for the War Room prayers. And we're just so grateful to be part of this community. God is doing an amazing thing, and you're all part of it. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Aaron and his son, saying, this is how you shall bless the children of Israel. You shall say unto them, Yibrachecha Yahweh v'yishmerecha. Yeher Yahweh panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisah Yahweh panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face shine upon you, be gracious unto you. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom and peace. They shall invoke my name upon the children of Israel, and I shall bless them. Beloved, go in peace today. In the name of our Prince of Peace, Yeshua the Messiah. Amen. God bless you, and we'll see you later.